Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the UK response to the terror attacks last week and the equally horrific counter response this weekend, both politically and wider. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, this video, as I say, is about how the UK has dealt with the escalating violence in Israel and Palestine, and we have significant numbers of people in the UK with ties to both Israel and Palestine. So events are felt quite keenly here. But this is a channel essentially about British politics with a Westminster focus. I'm actually hoping I don't have to do another video on this, because if I do, it means the situation has blown up very badly in the UK. And this is going to be a longer video than usual. You'll be able to see that from the time. And that's because the ripples from last weekend are bouncing off Britain as well. It's having an impact here, and we don't yet know how those ripples are going to continue in the coming weeks. I certainly don't. And there are some who want to listen to what people have to say on this subject. They demand it, like on both the left and the right of politics. And what they really want to know is, which tribe are you in? Which army are you in? It's why the same people who complained about Gary Lineker offering a political opinion are now outraged that he won't offer a political opinion. They're desperate for you to damn yourself or stand by them. It's one or the other. Are you with us or you're against us? If you support one group of murderers, you're on their side. If you support the others, you're beneath contempt. It seems it doesn't occur to any of these people that you might not like any form of murder. But if anyone wants me to say anything more generally, it's very much in line with what I said last week. I don't think there's anything really new. People who think that one set of murders is fine but another are not are part of the reason those murders are taking place. If you cheered the murders last week, you do not get to decry the murders of Palestinian civilians who were fleeing Gaza via what the Israeli government said was a safe route before being bombed. And if you think that the Palestinian murders are necessary collateral damage for Israel's right to defend itself, then you do not get to complain when innocent Israelis suffer as well. The only people who have any right to feel aggrieved at anything that's happening here are those who want civilians on both sides to be defended without exception, and for the murderers on both sides to be put behind bars without any whataboutery. And that is my response to absolutely any act of terror or oppression of any kind under any circumstances, whether it be lone wolf, paramilitary or state sanctioned. Unfortunately, it's a sentiment missing from the voices, the loudest voices, the platforms, the main platforms. Almost everyone with any sort of substantial platform that can get through to ordinary people is expressing hypocritically one-sided support. And one-sided support in a situation like this is no support for anyone. But my focus right now is the reaction in the UK. Now, being clear, I think I've already made this point. The UK alone can do nothing anyway. Like, even the US president can't. America can. American politicians not so much. It's clear from Biden's public statements he does not agree with Israel's behaviour here, but he has to be seen as the rational friend talking them out of a poor decision. It's the position America is in. If the US, for example, applied sanctions, you could say we'll apply sanctions against Israel for war crimes, would have no impact in the short term. Just like sanctions against Russia last year had no short-term impact, the sanctions bite when they've been applied for a long time. And there isn't the political will in America to do that. It's not happening. So when I say that the United States, is responsible in a major way, not the only one, but in a major way for this cycle of murder, I mean just that. I don't mean the US president or any individual political party. I mean the entire body politic in America. In the long term, they have the power to deliver peace, just as they did in Ireland. The position of a government in a situation like this is often a reflection of the perceptions across their country. And that perception can be warped by skilled con merchants and a corrupt media. We have plenty of that in both the UK and the US. But it still represents those perceptions. And it's important to remember that, because I'm going to ask people to consider the perceptions in the UK in a bit as well. As I said last week, the reason why everyone came together for peace in Ireland, but not the Middle East, is because the world doesn't really care about peace in the Middle East. It's not going, people talk about, it feels like we're closer to ever to a global war. It's not actually going to trigger a global war. Something else might, easily. There's other things that easily could, but not this. If economic interests can be maintained, there's plenty of economic interests in the Middle East, but if those economic interests can be maintained without peace, and they have been for decades, then what is the political motivation to seek peace? But the UK, what can the UK actually do? If the government gets everything right, what can it do? It can try to persuade a much broader international consensus for peace. That's it. Humza Yousaf, who has family in Gaza, said that he may be First Minister, but he feels helpless here. Well, it would make no difference if he were the Prime Minister of the entire UK. Very few countries have the power to make a major difference to the generations-long conflict on their own. All we can do is try to lead a conversation that persuades those countries. It is a shame we're not doing so. You know, many of us would like a UK government who can explicitly call for the two-state solution to be respected, for the illegal settlements to stop and be scaled back, for Palestine to be set up as a sovereign nation with well-defined borders, for Hamas to piss off out of it, and for both the US and Iran to stop fighting a bloody stupid proxy war with millions of innocent lives. And to do all this without a fear that those statements would be used against them to misinform the public. But the UK can't actually do anything unilaterally to solve or even help solve the problem. However, it can help mitigate the damage at times. It can help push for humanitarian support. It can push to make sure there are independent observers recording crimes against humanity on both sides. What it should not do is write a blank cheque. You know, we've had both the Conservatives and Labour parties in the UK saying that Israel has the right to defend itself. Indeed it does. And it is right that when hostages are taken, that includes the right of Israeli forces to move into Gaza in order to either recover bodies or, if possible, rescue those hostages. If you can find a terrorist to arrest, okay, whatever. But whereas Labour have said that Israel still needs to act within international law, the Conservatives have not. Starmer has talked about restoring food, water, medicines and electricity to Gaza. Sunak and Cleverly have talked about the Israeli refugees they're getting ready to receive, not a word about the Palestinian refugees who managed to get through the exit corridor without being bombed, nor anything about life in Gaza right now. Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly have been making a show of support for Israel, absolutely fine, but without qualifiers, not so fine. They now have to stand by every act that Netanyahu orders in what he claims is a defence. But for what purpose? What does it gain them? Does it help de-escalate the situation? No. In fact, you get the impression that the Western-aligned country most vocally opposed to the actions of Israel this weekend is Israel itself. Israeli media and politicians are putting the blame for this waste of human lives squarely at the feet of Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, I'm not suggesting that Sunak take quite the same line. It does not help to attack the head of a government of a country with whom you wish to be friends while they are still the head of the government. But there was no need to pretend that all of this was an unexpected attack that had nothing to do with the Israeli Prime Minister's past behaviour. How hard is it? Israel has the right to defend itself, to rescue its captured citizens, to recover the bodies, with proportionate action to the extent which international law allows. That should have been the statement that every senior politician in the UK could have made. They didn't have to get drawn into the details. They didn't have to get into whataboutery. It's a very fast-moving situation. It can take time for information to be independently verified. And it goes without saying, don't believe any photo or video shared on social media is what it purports to show until it's properly verified. There's already been ones going around claiming it's from Gaza when actually it's from Syria years ago. And in getting this wrong, Sunak is not only not helping the international effort, he's not only putting himself in the frame for being complicit in human rights violations, but he's risking civil unrest in the UK due to misunderstandings. Like right now on the global scale, we talk about what could trigger a global conflict. Everyone's worried about something going badly wrong in the Pacific due to a misunderstanding. It's part of a politician's main duty to avoid misunderstandings, especially ones that lead to violence. Because people are funny. Like, it's easy for someone, you live in a particular country and you view one government approvingly and the next one disapprovingly, or one political group approvingly and another one disapprovingly. You may not like either, you may not like any of them. Now, imagine someone thinking that everyone in the UK is on the same side as the Tories, for example. I mean, that's mad. It's like, what? Do you not get British politics? No, they don't. It seems mad to someone in the UK. But how many people are failing to distinguish between Netanyahu and his thugs and the Israeli people, or Hamas and the Palestinian people? Like, when you live in a country, you can see that there are lots of political factions. When you view a different country, you don't really know much about. We all too often see them all as the same because we don't understand their politics. You know, I stand with Biden in saying that the vast majority of Palestinians are nothing to do with Hamas. And people, that's what someone said to me, oh, they were elected in, oh, behave yourself. How hard is it for either a politician, a commentator, or a political activist? People who murder civilians should be reviled. They should be locked up. Tell a person about a terror attack. Tell them about a terror attack, right? A terror attack. Describe it. Leave out all the details about who perpetrated it, against whom, under what circumstances. Just describe the attack. Ask them what they think about it. If they need to know who was involved or what the excuse was, then they're not interested in humanity. They don't want peace. They want conflict. They just want to make sure they're approving or disapproving depending on who committed it, who wanted to wipe out who. They have their excuses to justify the bloodlust, but it's still bloodlust. It's still the desire to see people suffer and killed, wiped out even. How hard is it for someone who wants to support Palestine to denounce Hamas? How hard is it for someone who wants to support Israel to denounce Netanyahu? Or any other pirate who gains the power to commit the same crimes and does so? It's only difficult if you want the murders, if you really want them. It's as easy as pie if you want peace. In fact, there's no such thing as supporting Palestine or supporting Israel. No such thing. There is only both or neither. Because every time atrocities are committed against one, it results in suffering for the other. So to be one-sided is to support suffering on both sides. You know, I suppose suffering on neither, you know, and that's my support. I want suffering on neither side. And you won't change my mind that that is the correct way to view it. Bringing it back to Britain, there was a large pro-Palestinian demonstration yesterday. Now, I was a bit concerned. I'm still very concerned, I have to say. For a poorly informed public, what are they looking at? You'll say a rally in support of innocent Palestinians. Or is it one supporting Hamas? Think about the perceptions I was talking of earlier. Think about someone who doesn't live and breathe this conflict or any big political issue. They're just ordinary member of the public, right? Imagine what they're seeing in the media. Now they see this, what do they see? Now they don't have to form their own mind because I'll tell you what most of the accounts on social media were telling them to see. They were telling them to see an anti-Israeli demonstration. That's how they described it. In close-ups, I saw people with symbols and placards explicitly of peace, including one saying Jews for peace in Palestine. But I also saw others celebrating the murders by Hamas last week. And I'm sure the majority were demonstrating for peace. It's in our nature for the vast majority of us to actually want peace. It's only ever a few that don't. But how is the demonstration going to be seen by the wider public? How will it be seen by the Jewish communities in London? People should really consider this. Regardless of the failure and cruelty of Israel's government right now, last weekend was think about this, the largest killing and capture of Jewish people, specifically for being Jewish, since the Holocaust. We have a particular problem amongst some on the hard left that they hide their anti-Semitism behind the illegal actions of the Israeli government at times like this. Oh, it's not anti-Semitic to call out human rights abuses by the Israeli government. How is that anti-Semitic? It's not. But how is demonstrating outside a Jewish school in London calling out the Israeli government, or a synagogue in London? They've got nothing to do with the Israeli government. You're just intimidating Jewish people for being Jewish. And so is it any wonder when we saw acts supporting the terror attack by Hamas and acts of obvious anti-Semitism over the past week that someone can present yesterday's demonstration as an anti-Israel demonstration, and it will be readily accepted by much of the public without a second thought. Especially when there were speakers who they're calling out the crimes committed this weekend, but they refused to do so last weekend, even when directly asked about it. This is how it will be seen. It reminds you of the words of Kipling, the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools. But that is unfortunately the world we live in. It's why in Keir Starmer's latest statement, he talked of there should be zero tolerance for anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Because unfortunately in Britain, the loudest voices are calling for hatred against one side or the other, very few calling for humanity. The hateful voices on the left are driving a wave of anti-Semitism. Those on the right, one of Islamophobia. And who wins? Who really wins? As for the Tories, they're loving this. It's a great distraction in the media from domestic politics. It's all over the front pages, stops their handiwork being on the front pages. You know, just like the invasion of Ukraine, just like COVID. It's something that the public can't really blame them for, no matter how badly it goes wrong, 'cause it's not directly their fault. Even allow Sunak to pretend he's speaking on the world stage to garner a bit more support while he picks a good landing zone for the election. And what good does it really do the Tories? You know, I will say I think both Starmer and Thornberry last week mangled a couple of statements, but they and the senior leadership of the party have been consistently clear that international law must be respected every time they've spoken. I've seen a few people say, well, why is Starmer supporting Israel breaking international law? It's like every time he's spoken about this, he has said international law must be respected. You know, he's specifically called, as I said earlier, for resources to be re-established in Gaza. Why was it so hard for the Tories to do the same? Even the US president has called for people to think about the humanitarian tragedy in Gaza. So why does Sunak think he's sucking... Like, who does he think he's sucking up to with this position? Like, it's just another culture war alignment for him, isn't it? He's just got up today. Oh, is this the latest culture war? Yes, Prime Minister. All right, then. But what will be the consequences? Feels to me that what we need is leadership here, because the loudest voices are trying to turn communities against each other. And that sort of rhetoric is never in the interest of any community. Only the grifters on both sides. The grifters on both sides are the only ones who win here. Finally, although I'm not going to comment on the politics in the area itself, because do you know what? I'm not there. I've never been there. I'm not an expert. I've seen accounts with very interesting revelations. Some that are saying Netanyahu is unlikely to get what he wants. People seem to think he's finished now, just a matter of time. Also appears Hamas didn't get what they wanted either. They expected Iranian support, which hasn't materialised. Their strategy involved the wholesale slaughter of Palestinians. Consider that. They needed this. They knew it would happen. We all knew it would happen. It was part of their strategy. They wanted it to trigger a response against Israel locally. And this is always the case with ideologues, isn't it? They always claim they're doing it on behalf of a people. Always. But they will happily sacrifice those same people for their cause. Think on that. But it hasn't worked. They didn't get the reaction they wanted, according to some sources. So it sounds like this has all just been, like all forms of man-made mass suffering, a political game played by egomaniacs full of hate, which has resulted in genocidal levels of death. And neither side even got what they wanted. Everyone lost. Welcome to the world of being a dick with your twisted ideology. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.